Hey fellas, today I'm gonna show you how to make pixel style 3D meshes in Blender. So for this setup, I'm using a free add-on by Lucas Rodel, and I'll give the link to it in the description of the video. Okay, so do check that out, and just press on this and enter your email and press on get, and you'll get two files. Okay. So I'm gonna show you. You'll get these two files. Okay. Now I'm using this one right here. Okay. And I'm using Blender 4.0. So for the setup, um, let me head over to new and show you from the beginning. Okay. So you have to press on edit, preferences, click on add-ons, click on install, head over to the directory where you install the add-on, select the add-on and click on install add-on. Okay, I'll reinstall it so I don't have to install it again. Then enable the add-on by searching pixel art Eevee rendering. Okay, now here's a thing to keep in mind. This add-on only works or only renders in Eevees and not in cycles. Okay, why? I'll tell you about it soon. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we have to do. So we have this default queue right here, right? I'm gonna go ahead and press N. Okay, and click on pixel render. Now for pixel render, you have these options right here. The first is the pixel, or rather the render settings for pixel art. Okay, what this will do, when you press it, it will adjust the focal length of the camera. So make sure to have the camera selected, the one you have as an active camera. Okay, suppose if you have more than one camera, you can right click and set active camera. Okay, yeah, anyways, now that we have set up the camera's focal length, I'm gonna show you how to add the material. Okay, the pixel art material, you have to select the mesh and click on create/reset material. Okay, now after you clicked on it, you'll notice nothing's happening, right? That's because you are at the moment in solid view. Okay, so you need to go to render view. Okay, not in materials preview but in render view, right? Now you're still seeing nothing's happening. That's because the material has been created but not assigned. Okay, so okay, go to shading and select the drop down. Okay, click on the drop down and select pixel art simple. Okay, now it's showing the material like this because we are in materials preview and not in rendered. Okay, now it's showing properly. Okay, now if this is what you want, that's well and good, but I would recommend clicking on try light setup. Okay, now this try light setup, we have three RGB lights. Okay, first click on it and you'll know. All right, we have three color lights. Okay, if you don't believe me, you can go ahead and click on data and you can see this one is in red, green and blue. Okay, and how is this useful, might you ask? Well, it can manipulate what since this material is light dependent, this tri-light setup is pretty important. Okay, you can have you can mess around and have different effects on the mesh. Okay, and yeah, That's basically about it. You can change the colors, in fact, okay, and yeah, depending on what you want and what color you want, you can affect the textures of the mesh. All right. So when you select the material, when you select the object itself, the main thing you'll be focusing on is the color. Okay. So the color ramp here will, indicate which colors are used and how much influence it has over the material of the mesh. So the one over at the left will have the most influence, okay, and then the second and this one's the least influence, okay. All right. So as bring the colors closer, you can see that affected in some way, and this one is an RGB constant, okay. Now this setup, this pixel art setup is different from Toon Shader setup, okay. I'll show you why. So head over to default material here. Now what's a basic Toon Shader setup, right? If you don't know what's a Toon Shader, I can show you real quick. Head over to solid view, click on this drop down, this down arrow, okay. Click on matte cap and click on this sphere, okay, and there will be the Toon Shader option, okay. Doesn't show properly, but I'm gonna go ahead and add Susan Monkey and you'll see. This is the basic Toon Shader setup, okay. Now this can be made using a simple diffuse BSDF, okay. Let me show you here. So select this, select material, delete the principal BSDF, then press on Shift A, search, diffuse BSDF, then shader to RGB node, alright, then color ramp, and then connect the color to the surface, okay. Now you won't see anything going on, that's because it's in linear, you need to change it to constant, okay. Alright, now it's still not showing actually because it's fully black. Now you can see, move it around and stuff, and yeah, some colors. Yeah, so this is the basic Toon Shader setup, okay. Now let me tell you the difference between the Toon Shader and the Pixel Shader, okay. Now if you see here, the most obvious or abrupt difference you can see is that you see these pixels, or every pixel is like one square millimeter or something. I don't know, man. But you can spot the difference, right? You can say you can clearly say if it's a pixelated image or a cartoony image, right? So yeah, I won't delve too deep onto that, but this basically, if you've played pixelated games, okay, I'm sure you have, okay, you'll know that the textures on the sprites are pixelated, okay, and they're totally they're different from shader type Toon Shader type, okay, and the one thing in common of these two materials is that both of them are light dependent, okay. Now why do I say that? Well, how about we delete all of the lights, or rather dim all the lights. If we delete all the lights from the scene, you'll see that we have nothing shown in the viewport. And that's exactly right. Even if I render it by pressing F12, okay, I pressed F12 here, it doesn't show the screencast for some reason here, but yeah, this is what's showing here, okay. Wait, you might be confused why it's showing Tune Shader. That's because I have chosen Matcap. Let me change it to Studio, okay. Don't get confused, okay. But yeah, it's up to you what type of sprites you want to make. Ultimately, this pixel art style is certainly an option you can try out, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add the lights back again by clicking on try light setup, okay. Now if you press over here, you'll see the materials getting assigned. Okay, let me lights position. Okay, now as I said before, in this add-on you have to manipulate the color ramp, okay, and there are different ways you can manipulate the color ramp and have different effects, okay. Now suppose if you want a completely blue type effect, right, you can go for something like this, okay. And let me give you a few tips of rendering, okay. When do we use this add-on, right? Now the one thing I need you to know is that if you're using this add-on, you cannot, and I mean cannot at all, use the mesh itself in a 3D game, okay? If you're making a 3D game or making a 3D animated movie or something like that, if you're using Blender, you can make the 3D animation and stuff like that. But if you want to export it as an FBX and want the textures on it as pixelated, you cannot do that. Why? Because it's light dependent, okay. Now here's the next thing I want to say. Why did it say that the renders engine has to be an Eevee? Well, that's because if you change it to cycles, you'll see nothing's being shown, right? That's because it just doesn't show the material, or rather doesn't render the whole mesh if it's light dependent, okay. Now there are cases where you can use cycles for uh, rendering a similar style to ToonShare. Now, if you select cycles and then select Toon Shader, it won't show again because this simple setup is also light dependent. Okay. Now, when can we use it? I think I'll discuss that in some other video. Okay, not in this one. However, if you want to make animated sprites or render out images for UI like I did, okay, you can certainly use this add-on for helping you out making those type of projects and stuff like that, okay. So let me go ahead and show you an example, okay. All right, so I have this right here. Press F12. You'll see this one rendered out, but I'm not seeing this object rendered out. Why is that? Well, if you observe here in the scene collection, okay, you have these camera options, right? The camera button. It will show you which objects are being rendered out, okay, which objects are selected to be rendered, or rather the ones that will be rendered. Okay, so I have this whole collection which has the objects, but the render is disabled. Okay, now if I enable it and press F12, you'll see the whole thing is rendered, right? Now I made a simple animation. It's pretty simple, just a gear rotating in and about. Okay, now if I want to have this whole pixel animation and import it in a game. Okay, suppose I'm using a game engine like Unity or Godot. You can export the animation as as an image. Okay, now here are the settings for it. Okay, first you need to click on camera. Okay, select the camera you're using and then click on output and select the resolution. Okay, with size you want. Okay, so it depending on the game size it will depend. Okay, it will vary. So for me it's this, and then for the output I set the output over here, and we have the RGBA selected, and yeah, these are default settings, and you can change the location of where you want the images to be rendered, or images of the animation to be rendered out as sequence of images. As you know, uh, every pixel animation or sprite 2D animation consists of collection of images in a sequence, right? So that's what we are aiming for in the sequence animation. When you have the correct view selected, and all you have to do is click on render and click on render animation, and it will render out the whole animation in this location. So let me just show you render animation, and over here it's rendering the whole animation, and it will take some time depending on how big of time frame you have over here. And once it's done, you have to go to the location, and yeah, here we go. These are the collection of images that you can use for pixel for sprite 2D animation in a game, or maybe anywhere else. I mostly use it for games. Okay, anyways, yeah, that's about it actually. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful to some of you guys. Okay, and happy new year, since it's 2025 and I haven't been uploading for a long time because I was busy with my university studies and stuff like that. But hey, I am then got back to it just a few weeks back, and yeah, uh, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you will use it to make some exciting pixel art animation or maybe some games and stuff like that. And I'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye bye.